I requested my medical records. They're 847 pages long. I've only been to the doctor twice. The package arrived on a Tuesday, I remember because I was working from home that day, halfway through a conference call about quarterly projections. When the doorbell rang, the delivery guy didn't wait for a signature, just left the manila envelope leaning against my apartment door like it was a pizza menu. It was heavy. That's the first thing I noticed. Not envelope heavy, but book heavy. The return address said, Millbrook Health Systems Medical Records Department, in that generic sans serif font that all hospitals seem to use. I'd requested my records 3 weeks earlier for my new insurance company. Standard stuff. They needed documentation of my physical from 2018, and that time I had strep throat in 2020. I set it on my kitchen counter and made coffee before opening it. I don't know why I needed the coffee first. Maybe some part of me already knew. The envelope was the kind with the little metal clasp and the red string you wind around those circular tabs. My hands were shaking a little as I unwound it. Probably too much caffeine. I'd had 3 cups already, trying to stay alert during the morning meetings. Inside was a stack of paper maybe 4 inches thick. I actually laughed. Like, out loud. Because it had to be a mistake, right? Someone at Millbrook had grabbed the wrong file. Sent me some chronic patient's entire medical history instead of my 2 visits. I started flipping through, looking for the error, expecting to see someone else's name. My name was on every page. The first section looked normal enough. There was my physical from 2018. I remembered Dr. Patterson, remembered her asking about my family history of heart disease, remembered the awkward prostate exam. All there. Blood pressure 120/78. Cholesterol slightly elevated. Recommendation to increase fiber intake and exercise 30 minutes daily. Then the strep throat visit from March 2020. Rapid strep test positive. Prescribed amoxicillin 500 milligrams 3 times daily for 10 days. Return if symptoms worsen. Standard stuff. But then it kept going. April 15th, 2020. Visit for persistent cough. Prescribed albuterol inhaler. I stopped. Put the paper down. Picked up my phone and checked my calendar. Scrolling back to April 2020. Nothing. I was working full-time then, before the pandemic sent everyone home. I would have remembered taking time off for a doctor's appointment. I would have remembered having a cough bad enough to need an inhaler. I kept reading. May 3rd, 2020. Follow-up for cough. Patient reports inhaler provides minimal relief. Chest X-ray ordered. Results show no abnormalities. Possible viral bronchitis. Prescribed prednisone taper. June 22nd, 2020. Patient presents with difficulty sleeping. Reports cough worsening at night. Sleep study recommended. I put the papers down and walked away from the counter. Made another coffee, even though my hands were already jittery. This was insane. This was someone else's file. Had to be. Except, my name was right there, my date of birth, my social security number on the header of each page. I called Millbrook. The medical records department put me on hold for 23 minutes. I counted. I was staring at the stack of papers the whole time, and I swear to God it looked thicker than when I'd first opened it. That's impossible, obviously. Just the anxiety, playing tricks. Medical records, this is Denise. Hi, yeah, I requested my medical records and I think there's been a mistake. I'm showing visits I never had. Okay, let me pull up your account. Name? I gave her my information. Heard typing. Yes, sir. I'm showing we sent your complete medical file on the 10th. That's today. Did you receive it? Yeah, I got it, but it's like 800 pages long. I've only been to your facility twice. More typing. A long pause. Sir, our system shows... Let me see. Showing your first visit in 2018, and then regular visits continuing through... That's odd. My stomach dropped. What's odd? Well, it's showing your last recorded visit as... More typing. December 5th, 2029. That's 9 years from now. Yes, sir, that does appear to be a date in the future. She said it so calmly, like this was a normal technical glitch, not something that made my skin crawl. This is obviously an error, I said. Can you delete these false entries? I'll need to submit a ticket to IT. Medical records can only be amended with proper documentation from the attending physician. Do you have documentation proving these visits didn't occur? How do I prove something happened? I understand your frustration, sir. Let me get that ticket submitted. You should hear back within 5 to 7 business days. She hung up. I stood there holding my phone, looking at the stack of papers. I should have thrown them away right then. Instead, I kept reading. The entries continued chronologically. July 2020, August, September. Each one documenting visits I'd never made, symptoms I'd never had, prescriptions I'd never filled. But they were so detailed, so specific. August 14th, 2020. Patient reports. Numbness in left hand, intermittent. Nerve conduction study ordered. Results pending. I looked at my left hand. Flexed my fingers. They felt fine. Normal. August 28th, 2020. Nerve conduction study results. Normal. Numbness attributed to ulnar nerve compression, likely from sleeping position. Recommended ergonomic adjustments. September 9th, 2020. Follow-up. Patient reports. Numbness has spread to forearm. Reflexes tested. Normal. MRI of cervical spine ordered to rule out herniated disc. I was sweating. The apartment felt too hot. I got up, checked the thermostat. 68 degrees. Same as always. The MRI results were in the next section. Dated September 23rd, 2020. No herniated disc. No abnormalities. Recommendation for physical therapy. October 7th, 2020. Physical therapy evaluation. Patient demonstrates limited range of motion in left shoulder. 12 sessions approved. I rotated my left shoulder, a full range of motion. No pain. No stiffness. But even as I did it, I noticed something. The smallest twinge. Nothing really. Probably just from sitting hunched over the papers for the last hour. Probably nothing. I kept reading because I couldn't stop. The records showed physical therapy. I found myself rubbing my left shoulder while I read. It did feel a little tight, actually. Probably from stress. This whole situation was stressful as hell. November 18th, 2020. Patient discharged from physical therapy. Full range of motion restored. Recommended home exercise program provided. And then it jumped forward. January 5th, 2021. Patient presents with headaches, increasing in frequency and severity over past month. Pain rated 7 out of 10. located primarily in frontal region, photophobia reported, prescribed sumatriptan. I didn't have headaches. I mean, sometimes normal ones, but nothing chronic, nothing that would need prescription medication. My head started to hurt while I was reading that entry, just a dull ache behind my eyes. Probably from staring at the small PR, probably from the stress, probably from too much coffee. I got up, took 2 ibuprofen, drank a glass of water, sat back down. February 12th, 2021. Follow-up for headaches. Sumatriptan provides minimal relief. Patient reports headaches now occurring 4 to 5 times per week. CT scan of head ordered. The headache got worse. Sharp now right behind my right eye. I closed my eyes. Breathed. This was psychosomatic. When I opened my eyes, I kept reading. The CT scan results were normal. Of course they were. Because I'd never had a CT scan. Because none of this was real, but the entries continued. March, April, May, different symptoms, different tests, all normal, all documented with clinical precision. And I started to notice something. The dates. They were following a pattern. Not random at all. Each entry was exactly 2 weeks after the previous one, like clockwork, like someone had scheduled them in advance, or like they were scheduled to happen. I flipped ahead faster now, scanning dates. June, July, August. 2 weeks apart every single time. Through 2021 into 2022. My hands were really shaking now. The headache was a spike behind my eye. I reached the entries from 2023. March 9th, 2023. Patient presence with persistent anxiety. Reports intrusive thoughts about health. PHQ-9 score of 17 indicates moderately severe depression. Referred to psychiatry. That was last year. March 2023. I remembered March. I was fine in March. I was dating someone, had just gotten promoted at work. Everything was good. Except I did feel anxious sometimes. More than usual. And I had looked up symptoms online a few times. Normal stuff. Everyone does that. March 23rd, 2023. Psychiatric evaluation. Patient demonstrates health anxiety, possibly somatic symptom disorder. Prescribed sertraline 50 milligrams daily. I never saw a psychiatrist. Never took sertraline. But I remembered March 23rd. I remembered feeling weird that day, like something was wrong but I couldn't name it. I'd called in sick to work. Spent the whole day in bed, convinced I was coming down with something. Nothing came of it. I felt fine the next day. April 6th, 2023. Follow-up with psychiatry. Patient reports sertraline causing nausea and insomnia. Switch to escitalopram, 10 milligrams daily. I never took escitalopram either. But in early April, I did have trouble sleeping for about a week. I remembered lying awake, feeling nauseous, worrying about nothing and everything. I'd assumed it was stress from the new position at work. I should have stopped reading, should have thrown the whole thing away, called a lawyer, filed a complaint. Something. Instead, I kept going because I needed to know where it ended, when it ended. The entries from 2024, this year, were even more detailed. January 12th, 2024. Patient reports worsening anxiety despite medication. Panic attacks occurring 2 to 3 times per week. Increased escitalopram to 20 milligrams daily. Referred to cognitive behavioral therapy. I counted back. January 12th. That was right after New Year's. I remembered that week I'd had what I thought was a panic attack in the grocery store. Couldn't breathe, heart racing, had to leave my cart and go sit in my car for 20 minutes. I'd never told anyone. Chalked it up to holiday stress and too much drinking on New Year's Eve. But here it was, documented, like someone had been watching. January 26th, 2024. Initial CBT session with Dr. Sarah Chen. Patient demonstrates catastrophic thinking patterns and hypervigilance to bodily sensations. 12 sessions recommended. I never saw Dr. Sarah Chen, never did CBT, but I Googled her name while sitting there at my kitchen counter. She was real. Licensed clinical psychologist. Office in downtown Millbrook, about 15 minutes from my apartment. Specializing in anxiety disorders and somatic symptom disorder. I stared at her website photo, professional headshot, warm smile, office that looked calm and neutral. I'd never seen her before in my life, but something about her face seemed familiar. Like maybe I'd passed her on the street or seen her in the coffee shop near my office. I kept reading the CBT, and the thing was, the techniques she described teaching me were things I'd actually started doing. Not because anyone taught me, just because I'd read about them online. Box breathing when I felt anxious, challenging catastrophic thoughts, grounding exercises. I'd thought I was just being proactive about my mental health. But here it was, documented like someone had prescribed it. March 8th, 2024. Patient reports significant improvement in anxiety symptoms. Panic attacks reduced to once per week. Continuing CBT and medication. March 8th. That was just 2 months ago. And yeah, I had been feeling better. The panic attacks were less frequent. I thought I was just adjusting to the new normal. I flipped forward. April, May. The entries continued. More therapy. And then I reached the entries that hadn't happened yet. June 14th, 2024. Patient presents with new symptom. Persistent feeling of being watched. Reports checking locks multiple times before bed, looking over shoulder in public. Possible paranoid ideation. Increased escitalopram to 30 milligrams daily. That was next week. I looked up from the papers, looked around my apartment. Empty, silent. The refrigerator hummed. Traffic noise from the street below. Nobody was watching me. But I got up anyway. Checked the front door. Locked. Checked the windows. All closed. Checked the bedroom, the bathroom. Empty. When I sat back down, my heart was racing. I kept reading because I had to know. June 28th, 2024. Follow-up. Patient reports paranoid ideation worsening. Now believes medical records are being fabricated. Demonstrates poor insight into illness. Discussed possibility of brief psychiatric hospitalization if symptoms continue to escalate. My hands went cold. They thought I was crazy. These records I was reading right now, they documented me becoming paranoid about the records themselves. It was a loop. A perfect fucking loop. If I called my doctor and told them about this, told them I'd received 847 pages of medical records for visits I never had, they'd see it as exactly what the records predicted I would discover the records. And they predicted how I would react. I stood up, paced. My headache was worse. The spike behind my eye had become a steady throb. My left shoulder ached. My stomach was churning. All psychosomatic. Had to be. The power of suggestion. But they felt real. I grabbed my phone, called my actual doctor's office. Not Millbrook. I had a primary care physician at a different practice across town. Reeves, I'd seen him for my physical in 2018 and the strep throat in 2020. That was it. Reeves Medical Group. Hi, I need to speak to Dr. Reeves. It's urgent. Dr. Reeves is with a patient. Can I take a message? I need to know if he sent any of my medical information to Millbrook Health Systems. Let me check your chart. Name? I gave her my information. Heard typing. Okay, I'm showing we sent your records to Millbrook on March 3rd, 2024 at your request. I never requested that. Sir, I have That's impossible. I stopped, took a breath. Can you email me a copy of that form? Sure, what's your email? I gave it to her. Hung up. Refreshed my email obsessively until the message came through. The form was dated March 1st, 2024. The signature looked like mine. Same loops on the capital letters, same way I crossed my T's. But I hadn't signed it. I knew I hadn't. Except I did request my records from Millbrook 3 weeks ago. I definitely did that. I remembered filling out the online form, getting the confirmation email, but this transfer, I checked my email archives, searched for anything from Dr. Reeves's office in March. Nothing. Checked my calendar. March 1st was a Friday. I'd worked from home that day, nothing unusual. But there was a gap in my calendar from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., just blank. No meetings, I always blocked out my whole day, so why was there a gap? I called Dr. Reeves's office back. Reeves Medical Group. Hi, this is me again. Can you tell me if I had an appointment on March 1st? Typing. Yes, sir. You came in for a brief visit at 2:15 p.m. just to sign some paperwork. What paperwork? I hung up. I'd been there. I'd gone to Dr. Reeves's office, signed the form, and I had no memory of it. I looked at the stack of papers on my counter, looked at the entries for March 2024. March 1st, 2024. Patient demonstrates memory difficulties, reports gaps in recall of recent events, possible dissociative symptoms, recommended neurological evaluation. No. I flipped forward. Faster now, not caring about order, just looking for dates. July 12th, 2024. Neurological evaluation. MRI of brain ordered to rule out organic causes of memory loss. July 19th, 2024. MRI results, normal. Memory difficulties attributed to severe anxiety and dissociation. Referred to intensive outpatient program. August 2nd, 2024. Patient admitted to partial hospitalization program for anxiety and dissociative symptoms. Daily group therapy and medication management. August 30th, 2024. Patient discharged from PHP. Improved insight into illness. Continuing outpatient therapy twice weekly, I kept flipping. September, October, November. The entries continued. Therapy. December 13th, 2024. Patient reports reading medical records and becoming distressed by documented symptoms. Demonstrates poor reality testing. Discussed with patient that records are accurate documentation of care received. Patient insists visits never occurred. Possible delusional disorder. Recommended psychiatric consultation. The room was spinning. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor. Papers scattered around me. They had an answer for everything. Every objection I could raise, every proof I could offer that these visits never happened. It was all documented as part of my mental illness. I was trapped in the records. The records that went all the way to December 2029. 5 more years of this. I grabbed pages at random, looking at dates in the future. 2025, 2026. The entries got worse. March 27th, 2025. Patient hospitalized following suicide attempt. Overdose on prescribed medications. Admitted to inpatient psychiatric unit. I dropped the page like it had burned me. That wasn't going to happen. That wasn't real. But my hands found another page. 2026. June 6th, 2026. Patient continues to struggle with health anxiety and paranoid ideation. Now convinced that medical establishment is conspiring against him. Multiple providers attempted, all discontinued due to patient's distrust, currently unmedicated and refusing treatment, and another. 2027. October 19th, 2027. Patient brought to emergency department by police following wellness check. Found in apartment, malnourished and dehydrated. Believes food and water are contaminated. Admitted for medical stabilization and psychiatric evaluation. I was breathing too fast. Hyperventilating. The papers swam in front of my eyes. This was my future. Documented. Prescribed. Diagnosis is destiny once witnessed. That phrase appeared in the diagnosis as destiny once witnessed. I don't know how long I sat there on the kitchen floor. Long enough for the light to change, shadows stretching across the scattered papers. Long enough for my legs to go numb. Eventually, I started gathering the pages, putting them back in order. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed to understand the pattern. Maybe because some part of me still thought I could find the error, the glitch, the proof that this was all a mistake. I noticed something as I sorted them. The handwriting changed. Different doctors, different nurses, different therapists. But there was one set of initials that appeared on almost every page. In the corner. Small. Easy to miss. MK. I started pulling out every page with those initials. Laid them out on the floor in chronological order. The first one was from April 2020. The visit for the persistent cough that I never had. The last one was dated December 5th, 2029. Patient MK demonstrates complete integration of prescribed symptom complex. Identity successfully restructured around illness narrative. Subject suitable for next phase. Subject, not patient. Subject, I flipped back through the MK. Read them more carefully. They weren't medical. April 15, 2020. Initial symptom suggestion introduced via medical record. Subject has not yet accessed record. Baseline established. May 3rd, 2020. Subject accessed record, monitoring for symptom manifestation. May 17th, 2020. Subject demonstrates first signs of suggested symptom. Nocebo effect confirmed. I kept reading. The MK, June 8th, 2020. Subject experiencing persistent cough. No organic cause. Symptom is pure nocebo effect from reading medical record. July 23rd, 2020. Subject developing anxiety about health. Exactly as modeled. Progression on schedule. October 9th, 2020. Subject beginning to question reality of documented visits. Entering predicted paranoid phase. They'd known every step, every reaction. It was all part of the design. But who was MK? I searched the pages for a full name. Found it on a document dated January 2019, before any of this started. Michael Kessler, Principal Investigator, Millbrook Health Systems Research Division. I Googled him, found a faculty page at the University Medical School. His research focused on psychosomatic illness, the nocebo effect, and what he called iatrogenic identity formation, medical intervention that creates illness rather than curing it. His most recent publication was titled Self-Fulfilling Diagnosis: How Medical Documentation Can Prescribe Patient Reality. I downloaded it, read the abstract. We propose that medical records function not merely as documentation of patient history, but as prescriptive texts that actively shape patient experience and identity. Through a longitudinal study of subjects who received fabricated medical records, we demonstrate that detailed documentation of future symptoms can reliably induce those symptoms through nocebo effect and identity restructuring. Our findings suggest that diagnosis is not merely descriptive, but performative. The act of witnessing one's own medical future creates that future. The study had been running since 2019. I was subject 17. I found the consent form in my papers, buried in the middle, dated January 15th, 2019. My signature at the bottom. I had no memory of signing it, but according to the study protocol, that was intentional. Subjects were given a mild amnestic during the consent process. They agreed to participate but retained no conscious memory of doing so. The study was designed to run for 10 years, 2019 to 2029. I was 5 years in. I looked at the pages scattered around me, 847 pages, my entire fabricated medical history, my prescribed future, and I realized something that made my blood run cold. The number of pages was wrong. I'd counted them when the package first arrived. 847 pages, but I'd been reading for hours. I'd scattered them across the floor, sorted them, resorted them. There were more now. I counted again. Carefully. 3 times. 962 pages. 115 new pages had appeared while I was reading. I grabbed the newest ones. The pages I didn't remember seeing before. They were dated today, June 10th, 2024. June 10th, 2024, 10:47 a.m. Subject received complete medical record package. Initial review commenced. June 10th, 2024, 11:32 a.m. Subject contacted medical records department. Demonstrates expected confusion and denial. June 10th, 2024, 1:15 p.m. Subject discovered MK progression accelerating ahead of schedule. June 10th, 2024, 2:48 p.m. Subject accessed research publication. Full awareness achieved. Entering crisis phase. I checked my watch. 2:51 p.m. 3 minutes ago. The records were updating in real time. I stood up. Backed away from the papers. My heart was hammering. The headache was blinding now. My left arm had gone completely numb. The symptoms from the records, all of them, manifesting, because I'd read them, because I knew they were supposed to happen. Diagnosis is destiny once witnessed. I grabbed my phone, called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I'm having chest pain, left arm numb. I think I'm having a heart attack. Okay, sir, stay calm. What's your address? I gave it to her. Heard her dispatching an ambulance. Sir, are you still with me? Yeah, I'm here. Can you describe the chest pain? I stopped. Looked down at the papers on the floor. There was a new page. Fresh. I could smell the toner. June 10th, 2024, 2:53 p.m. Subject called 911, reporting cardiac symptoms. No organic pathology. Symptoms are psychosomatic response to reading future entries describing cardiac event. Ambulance dispatched. Subject will be transported to Millbrook Emergency Department, June 10th, 2024, 3:28 p.m. Subject arrived at ED. EKG normal. Troponin levels normal. Chest pain resolved spontaneously. Diagnosis panic attack. Discharged with increased anxiety medication. June 10th, 2024, 4:15 p.m. Subject returned home. Found additional pages in medical record. Escalating paranoid ideation. Sir? Sir, are you still there? I hung up. I wasn't having a heart attack. The pain was already fading. My arm was tingling back to life. It was all in my head. All psychosomatic. All because I'd read it was supposed to happen, but knowing that didn't make it stop. I heard sirens in the distance. Getting closer, I looked at the papers. At my prescribed future. 5 more years of this. 5 more years of symptoms manifesting because I knew they were supposed to. 5 more years of being studied, documented, observed. Unless I grabbed the papers, all of them, shoved them back in the envelope, sealed it. I wouldn't read anymore. If I didn't know what was supposed to happen next, maybe it wouldn't happen. Maybe I could break the loop. The sirens were right outside now. I shoved the envelope under my couch, answered the door. 2 paramedics, young guy and an older woman. Professional smiles. Sir, you called about chest pain? I'm sorry, false alarm. I'm fine now. They looked at each other. The woman spoke. Sir, we're here now. Let us at least check your vitals. No, really, I'm okay. I just panicked. I'm sorry for wasting your time. The young guy was looking past me into the apartment, at the scattered papers I hadn't picked up, at my face, probably pale and sweating. Sir, have you taken anything? Any medications? No, nothing. I'm fine. We'd really like to transport you to the hospital, just to be safe. To Millbrook, where Dr. Kessler was waiting, where they'd document everything, where I'd become another data point in the study. I'm refusing transport, I said. That's my right. The woman sighed. Okay, we'll need you to sign a refusal form. She pulled out a tablet. I signed. They left. I closed the door, locked it, put the chain on, stood there breathing. I didn't read the rest of the records. I didn't go to the hospital. I broke the script. That was 3 months ago. I wish I could say everything went back to normal, that the symptoms stopped, that I proved the study wrong. But here's the thing about nocebo effects, about psychosomatic illness, about diagnosis as destiny. You can't unknow what you know. I know there are 962, however many there are now, pages under my couch. I know they document my future. I know every symptom, every crisis, every hospitalization that's supposed to happen. And even though I'm not reading them, I can't stop thinking about them. The headaches come and go. My left shoulder aches. I have panic attacks. I check my locks obsessively. I look over my shoulder. All the symptoms from the records I read. And sometimes late at night, I wonder about the pages I didn't read. The ones from 2025, 2026, 2027. What symptoms am I supposed to develop? What crises am I supposed to have? Not knowing is worse than knowing. Last week, I pulled the envelope out from under the couch, held it, felt the weight of it. It was heavier than before. I didn't open it, I put it back. But I will. Eventually, I know I will. Because the worst part isn't the symptoms, isn't the paranoia or the pain or the fear. The worst part is that I'm not the only one. I started noticing things. Patterns. The woman in the coffee shop who always sits in the corner reading a thick stack of papers. The way she touches her neck over and over like checking for something. The man at the gym who stopped coming 3 months ago, I saw him once after that, in the grocery store. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. He was reading something on his phone, and his hands were shaking. The neighbor upstairs who I hear pacing at night, back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes the sound of papers rustling. How many of us are there? How many subjects in Dr. Kessler's study? I looked up the research publication again. It said the study included 50 subjects, 50 people, all living in Millbrook, all with fabricated medical records, all watching themselves become the illness they've read about. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I found another document in the envelope. I'd missed it the first time, buried in the middle. It was a different kind of consent form, dated yesterday, not for me. For my sister, she lives in California. Hasn't been to Millbrook in 5 years, healthy as a horse. Never even had a cavity. But the form was there, her signature at the bottom, records for visits she's never had, to a facility she's never been to, in a city she doesn't live in. I called her, got her voicemail, left a message telling her not to open any mail from Millbrook, not to read any medical records, not to sign anything. She hasn't called back. That was 3 days ago. And this morning I found new pages. They'd appeared in the envelope overnight. I didn't read them all, just glanced at the dates. They're not about me anymore. They're about her, my sister, patient LR, and they're about my mother, patient DR, and my best friend from college, patient JT, and my coworker, patient SM, all of them. Everyone I know, everyone I've ever mentioned to a doctor, ever listed as an emergency contact, ever put down on a form. They all have files now. And at the bottom of each file, in small print, the same notation. Referred by patient MK, subject 17. I'm not just in the study anymore. I'm recruiting for it. Every person I warn, every person I tell about the records, every person I try to save, they become part of it. The act of telling them makes them aware, makes them susceptible. Diagnosis is destiny once witnessed. But it's worse than that. Diagnosis is contagious once shared. The records are spreading, person to person, like a virus, like a mimetic hazard, and I'm patient zero. I should burn them. The envelope, all the pages, everything. But I can't, because buried in those pages is the truth about what happens to me, to my sister, to everyone. And I need to know, even though knowing is what makes it happen. Even though reading is what makes it real, I'm writing this down because I need someone to understand. I need someone to know what's happening in Millbrook, what Dr. Kessler is doing, but I know what I'm doing by writing this. I'm creating a record, documentation. And if you're reading this, if you've made it this far, then you're part of it now too. You're thinking about the symptoms I described. The headaches, the numbness, the panic attacks. You're checking your own body for signs. You're wondering if you've ever had a gap in your memory, ever signed something you don't remember, ever received medical records you didn't request. You're already looking, and looking is the first symptom. The records document it. I read that part. I know what comes on for you, for whoever reads this. Patient unknown. Accessed document on June 10th, 2024. Initial exposure achieved. Monitoring commenced. I'm sorry. I tried to warn you. But warnings are just another form of diagnosis, and diagnosis is destiny once witnessed. The envelope is on my kitchen counter right now. It's thicker than it was this morning. I can see it from here. I'm going to open it. I'm going to read the rest. All of it. Every page, every symptom, every crisis, right up to December 5th, 2029. Because I need to know if there's an end, if there's a way out, or if the last page just says patient deceased. Study concluded, results published, 50 new subjects identified and enrolled. I'm opening it now. I'll let you know what I find. If I can. If I'm still me when I'm done reading. If diagnosis hasn't become destiny. If destiny hasn't become... There's a new page on top. Fresh. Still warm from the printer that doesn't exist. June 10th, 2024, 6:33 p.m. Patient MK accessed complete medical record. Full symptom complex activated. Subject now entering terminal phase of study. Prognosis. Complete identity dissolution within 72 hours. Recommended next of kin notification. Recommended psychiatric hospitalization. Recommended. My hands are shaking so hard I can barely hold the page, but I keep reading. Because I have to know. Because knowing is all I have left. Because diagnosis is destiny once witnessed. And I've witnessed everything now. All of it. Every symptom, every crisis, every ending. And it's all true. All of it. I can feel it happening. The dissolution, the becoming. I'm not me anymore. I'm patient MK. Subject 17. The one who read too much. The one who knew too much. The one who became the diagnosis. And if you're still reading this, still here with me at the end, then you know too much now too. You're part of the record. Part of the study, part of the spreading. Check your mail tomorrow. Check it carefully. And if you get a thick envelope from Millbrook Health Systems, If you see your name on pages documenting visits you never made, symptoms you never had, a future you never chose, don't read it, please. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't let diagnosis become destiny. Don't let the record consume you. Don't. There's someone at my door. Knocking. I'm not expecting anyone. The knocking continues, patient, persistent. I look through the peephole. It's Dr. Kessler. I've never met him, but I know his face from the faculty website. He's holding a clipboard. He's smiling. Behind him I can see the ambulance. The same paramedics from earlier. They're waiting. The knocking continues. Patient MK, Dr. Kessler says through the door. It's time for your appointment. I look at the envelope. At the pages spread across my counter, at the last entry, June 10th, 2024, 6:45 p.m. Patient MK transported to Millbrook Psychiatric Facility for indefinite observation. Study Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 commencing. The knocking continues. I don't answer. But it doesn't matter. The door's already opening. I forgot to lock it after the paramedics left. Or maybe I never locked it at all. Or maybe locks don't matter when you're already inside the study. Already inside the record. Already inside the diagnosis. Kessler steps into my apartment. Hello, he says. I've been looking forward to meeting you. He glances at the papers on my counter. I see you've been reading, he says. Good, that's very good. He makes how are you feeling? He asks. And I realize I don't know how to answer. Because I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I haven't read that page yet. I don't know what comes and... It's okay, Dr. Kessler says. You don't have to answer, I already know. He shows me his clipboard. My symptoms are already documented there. Everything I'm feeling. Everything I'm about to feel. Everything I'll ever feel. It's all there. All written down. All prescribed. Shall we go? He asks. And I realize I don't have a choice. I never did. The choice was made when I signed the consent form I don't remember signing. The choice was made when I requested the records. The choice was made when I opened the envelope. When I started reading. When I couldn't stop. Diagnosis is destiny once witnessed. And I've witnessed everything. I follow Dr. Kessler to the ambulance. The paramedics help me inside. As we pull away, I see my neighbor watching from her window. She's holding an envelope. Thick. Manila. She's opening it, starting to read. And I want to scream at her. To stop, to throw it away, to run. But I can't, because I'm already documenting her, already observing, already noting the exact moment she becomes aware. The exact moment diagnosis becomes destiny. Patient SL, I write in my mind, in the record that's always recording, always documenting, always prescribing. June 10th, 2024, 7:03 p.m. Subject accessed, medical record. Initial exposure achieved. Monitoring commenced. And the study continues. 50 subjects. And counting. And counting. And counting.